and then I heard a huge like, bang, and everyone kind of leaves this one room and sees like this sea of like riot police. I'm like, fuck. They're not letting anyone through, and they're getting closer to us. They're pulling people out of these crowds. I don't know what they're doing behind them. They could be letting them go. And it kind of creates like a panic. Yeah. And everyone's like scrambling to get out. And, like I follow these kids, and they find a fence, they jump down, and they kind of bolt it. And I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do the same. Find a fence, jump down, and I just land in this puddle. And I'm like, and it's like knee deep, and I'm soaking wet, and I run, and I see a bus, and I just tap on. I don't even know where the bus. Didn't know where it was going. I just needed to get out.
Guys, the guest today on the pod is a photographer that I would say is one of the most synonymous when it comes to covering underground electronic music culture. I'm here with Yushy. Thanks for having me. And essentially, we're here to talk about his new book, which has been his life for the last few years, Section 63, which is available now. I'll put it in the description. But tell me, how did this book first come about?
With any long project like this, it always happens by mistake, and I think this is a great example of it. I was in Hyde Park 420, as you are, and I get summoned by these people kind of pushing me to talking about this rave that they're putting on, like central London location, called a line. I'm like, I didn't know what that meant at the time, but they're like, you have to come. Your photos are sick, you have to come. I was like, all right, whatever, guys. And they kind of give me a number off the whim. If I were to contact them, I should. And when it came to the date later on in the week, I was like, I'm in Central, there's nothing really to do. I've got my camera with me. I might as well just try it. And I messaged the guy, and he sent me a link to a Telegram. And I joined a Telegram, and they're like, oh, call this number for the location. And I'm like, oh my God, what's all these? And I called a number, and they're like, this is the spot, come here, tenner on the door, nothing else. I'm like, that's like 20 minutes away from me. So I jumped on the line bike, walked across, and as I got closer, I could just feel like bass, like growing from the ground. And I got to the door, and it just swung open, and there was a few people there, and they were like, you here for the party? I'm like, yeah. And they saw the camera, and they were like, what are you doing here? And I kind of had to hide it. I'm just here to rave, and tenor down doors, and before you know it, just locked in for a few years. Just same process all over again. You
went down a rabbit hole of underground parties that lasted about 2 years, I believe, right?
2.5, 3 years.
Yeah, starting basically at the tail end or the very end of the final lockdown, right? Yeah. And how many sort of underground parties or squat parties or free parties, whatever you want to call them, how many of them did you go to in the end that made up this body of work that is published in this book?
There was a point in time where I was going to some like once every weekend for 2-3 months, which is a lot. And sometimes I got busy and I kind of pushed myself back, and then sometimes I was just there. I was there before the party happened, as they were rigging it out. And I kind of just hopefully became part of the furniture for some people, but there was too many to count.
And obviously with your photography in sort of nightlife contexts has spanned very commercial venues, for instance, and then obviously now this completely underground. So what is the difference when you're on a dance floor, in your opinion, where if you were at a sort of very commercial venue like drum sheds, for instance, compared to being on the dance floor in a sort of squat where you don't know if the riot police are going to boot the door in any minute?
Well, I think getting into these spaces is you get some sort of adrenaline because you're walking through environments where like, the music that I played isn't normally there, and you just experience like this really form of like catharsis where people kind of see you and experience an office building turned rave, and not talking about like any like venue that is an office and then turned legal venue, but in a way where you can see like desks and information from like 2006 and like calendars from the same time, and looking at just tiles and office lights and how they are kind of just rigged out with like lasers and fog machines what people bring in to build this rave and build this environment for a lot of people. But whereas like drum sheds and these mainstream venues are great, but they're mainstream. They're very polished and soft and careful. And I'm not saying these squats aren't, but they have some edge to it, which kind of makes you reminisce on a time that a lot of people like me never experienced.
So you're talking about the sort of intense nostalgia, almost bordering on fetishization of the 1990s that was very difficult to escape.
Well, it's even like, just like smoking indoors.
Yes.
When you're at these places, everyone's just like smoking, and you're like, this feels really wrong, and it's like, oh. But then you go to like a venue and everyone's vaping indoors, and it's like, oh, there's no smell. But you come out of these spaces just stinking of cigarettes. You're like, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's like, oh, it's how people must have smelled all the time coming out of these clubs.
Yeah, definitely. Because I remember someone telling me that basically if you're going clubbing before the smoking ban, your clothes would stink of cigarettes the next day. But when they brought the smoking ban in, they realized that the raves actually, the sort of legal venues smelt very bad, because once you took the tobacco smell away, there was sick, there was stale beer, and all these other smells that got unlocked because of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting about that sort of, so essentially it's the sort of spiritual transcendence that you can get from being at a party with a certain amount of people all in it together, but then you're throwing in an element of adventure, you're throwing in an element of danger as well, and that sort of changes the atmosphere.
Well, it just makes all the music play more enjoyable. It's like you're on your toes, and sometimes you're in spaces for hours and not a peep, and sometimes you're in a room, you're in a space for 10 minutes, and the music they play, they're like, oh, this is donk, what the hell? And then before you know it, the police are just there. They're like, oh, I guess I have to enjoy this donk as I can. It makes everything a lot more intensified, and it also kind of, it just keeps you alert. There's a lot of amazing and very like very aware people at these spaces that are helping people create like a safe environment, testing drugs, making sure people are hydrated, and making sure people are searched going in, and the security are very safe. Like they always say at these like messages that go, at these broadcast messages that go out.
And they're in the book, some of them, aren't they? Highly anonymized.
Yeah. No glass, no sharps, no NOS, no Xanax. I mean, they're aware about what is like affecting people now, especially with drugs, and they're making sure people aren't taking them in their raves.
So it's interesting that I feel like there's a misconceptions about this culture to people, to outsiders maybe, that it's completely out of control, there are no rules, but actually you can see from the sort of messages and the broadcasts that you see that actually that's not the case at all, that there is a certain code of conduct, there is a certain norms of values that go along with this, right?
Completely. It's like there's a hierarchy, and you respect people that are letting you into their space. You don't tag up a venue when they told you not to tag up, and if you do, there will be consequences. There will be consequences if you brought in your own NOS or your own glass, because then that can affect somebody else, and that could potentially damage somebody and hurt somebody. And you respect the rules, and people respect you and let you party and enjoy your rave. But if you don't, you get kind of blacklisted. Yeah,
interesting. What do you think is the motives for a young person? When I say young, I'm talking about like, 18, 19-year-old that you see at these parties. Because you see a whole age range, don't you, at these parties?
Yeah, massive.
And a lot of different sort of tribes or societal subsets. But for the young people that go, do you think, what is the motives for them going, do you think?
I think it's...
As opposed to going to a nightclub?
I think this, especially the stuff like people see now on TikTok, because a lot of like club stuff is just like boiler room-esque.
Yes.
And it's also TikTokified, where it's just like short form video, drop, crowd. I'm like, wow, cool. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not great. And I think there's a group of people that are like rejecting that and kind of like deep diving into the people that they know or like, who are very almost not anti-social media, but anti like Instagram reality, when they're trying to push back on that and really kind of instate this, I guess, very like British tradition and bringing it back in a way that is modernized through the use of like social media, using like apps like Telegram and Instagram as well.
But even though you are describing a somewhat de-Instagramification
Completely.
of sort of electronic music culture.
It's weird because like even in these spaces there'll be like people filming them on their phones and sometimes filming the sets and recording the sets, and then be weirded out by someone taking pictures early on. But now it's like, if you respect them, people respect you. But there's no one there like filming drops and then uploading reels. I mean, it could happen, but there's enough respect now that it won't happen in that scene. It's underneath people's noses.
Yeah,
really.
It's interesting because I've always got a sense when I go to these parties that, you know, you're welcome at the party, but you must respect the scene. And also, especially so, you know, how did you gain ultimately the access? Because that is not easy with this particular subculture. They distrust journalists a lot.
Well, I think, thankfully, I didn't disguise myself as a journalist. I was just a photographer that liked raving, and I think my mainstream world kind of really affected this world, where a lot of the times they saw the kind of like underground mainstream artists I was working with and still work with, and how they aspired to be like them, and the people in the underground were like, oh, this is what we're doing, but a bit more polished and legal. You're fine. You work to these DJs, you work to these artists, and you know them. And it kind of gave me a green light with some people, but in other times it was like not convincing them, but showing them like my workflow, where on my digital camera they were like looking through my pictures. They're like, why did you take this? And I'm like, oh, it's because the light hits the wall cool. And not trying to pander to them, it's like, oh, I just like the way it looks. We're in an office building. I mean, they sell bakery goods here like 4 years ago. It's empty and there's a rave here. But to someone that's their blood and lifeline, it does look weird. That I've just come in and just started taking pictures. So I'm almost like proving myself to them that I'm not doing some form of like espionage.
Yeah, no, and also that sort of your motives were pure going in.
Yeah.
But your style is kind of like different to a lot of club photography style in nightclubs. Can get a bit, like you said, the videos get quite samey, but yours is more like a documentary photography style, right?
Yeah, completely. I always think of myself as a fly on the wall. Like I'm just there, and thank God I'm a short guy, because I can just weave my way into places and just be around artists and some people and just not be intrusive and not be intrusive. And like if I take a picture and someone had an issue with it, even within this project, I'll show them.
Yeah.
And I'll delete it if they had an issue with it. I'm like, I'm not here to cause you any harm. I want to take cool photos. And if you want the photo, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
But even in like nightclubs, just making sure that people are comfortable, like, because especially in this, I talk about how there's so much surveillance in London, and there's so much surveillance in clubs in general that it kind of stops you just letting loose.
Yes.
And I feel like even in clubs now, like Amber's in Manchester that has a phone ban, or Fabric says they do as well. But even in those cases, there's still people with cameras.
Not to mention that there's a hell of a lot of CCTV, there's ID scanning, there's even some clubs now, not in London like underground clubs, but it's more associated with a certain chain of student clubs and stuff that are like pushing to bring in facial recognition. I wrote an article about it in DJ Mag. So basically the idea is it's this particular app that they're pushing that you won't turn up with like your ticket and your ID. You'll just sort of look into a camera.
Wow.
The camera will scan your face. But that's completely at odds, in my opinion, with the original values that this sort of electronic music culture was founded upon.
Completely.
Because it's like, it was very much a values of a sense of escapism, sense of freedom, even perhaps a sense of privacy, you know, when you go into these spaces. So it's disappointing to see in the sort of legitimate clubbing going down the route of like data collection and things like that.
Your face likes this music.
And the fact that this culture continues, this underground culture, do you think that that is a sort of fuck you to that sort of stuff, or?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's kind of the counterculture. This counterculture is almost building a community of people that don't want to be associated with being monitored all the time.
Yeah.
But then there's like a line that it crosses where it's like deep state and people get quite nervous and tinfoil hatty. But this has never reached that, and I don't think it ever will, because the people that like this music are very open and welcoming. I mean, there's like a big like queer community I've seen at these clubs, and I was like, it is crazy that you've as when I've spoken to people, they're like, as a queer person, they felt more comfortable in these squat parties than they would do in a club, which is great. They found a space, but also like it's crazy that they had to seek out another space to find where they're comfortable, and so did everyone. In fact, they had to seek out where is their like comfort in raving.
And also finding their sort of community as well, which is massive for the queer people. Do you think that there's something that the mainstream sort of clubbing, legitimate clubbing thing can learn from the free practice scene, in a sense that, you know, when you're getting searched on the way in, you might be searched for weapons, you wouldn't necessarily be searched for drugs particularly. And you rarely ever see deaths at these underground events.
No.
However, when you have a highly sort of controlled scenario like a nightclub, like where they're searching, they're really going for it, people are worried. We've seen in the past that inexperienced people might have taken their drugs before they go in too fast. Yeah. But do you think, I'm just thinking maybe they could really see that if you get hands off on drug possession, it seems to reduce the actual medical emergencies around it.
And even having testing kits and on site, I think that's the biggest thing. Like most of these parties I went to, the big ones have people but are actively testing drugs. And they're like, oh, I found this baggie, what is it? And they're like, oh, this is 𝐆𝓞𝐿, do not take this. Okay. Unless you want to. But then these are the risks, and they'll provide them with like an educated like list of things, but not pander to them saying, oh, we're going to tell the police as well. But then you go to fabric and a baggie falls out your pocket, and the security are chucking you out before that hits the ground. And
and they're notorious for it there, aren't they?
And it's like, it's so uncalled for. It makes people scared. And like you said, if they take something too soon or too quickly, it can really put them like in a bad state.
It's not just that. If someone's measuring out a bit of ket to take, for instance, but they're in a nightclub, they're in a corner, and they're like, shit, the bouncer's coming, blah, blah, blah. So they might not be able to get the dose they want because they're rushing, you know? But that doesn't happen when your hands off on possession of drugs and you just focus on everyone's well-being and stuff like that. What did you learn about the lifestyles of the people that own the rigs and bring the rigs? And because they are obsessed, these people, with the rig. The rig is God.
We're sitting in front of a rig that is provided by 𝐷𝐷𝐷 Sounds. I met them, photographed. They were the first like proper party I went to. And I just became friends with them. And they're like, every now and again, they would like update me, and they're like, look what we've done, look what we've built. And like, they built this themselves. And I don't know how on earth they do that, but this is their life, and it's amazing that now, especially with a crew like 𝐷𝐷𝐷𝐷 Sounds, it provided them a lifestyle in the underground, and now I'm seeing them in mainstream spaces like Glastonbury do the same thing. And it's really like they're in a place where they can be respected in the underground and respected in the mainstream, and also not kind of be like blown out for being a poser neither, because they know they've earned their stripes, and it's just interesting to see them like work. It's a big respect to them. And what sort of reactions have you had to this project so far? I mean, obviously it's a brand new project, but what reactions have you had so far? Have you had a lot of interest? A lot of interest. Also, a lot of people that are like confused about what a squat rave is. And I think particularly if you're not convinced in the lingo and convinced, or not really, if you don't know the lingo, don't know what like raving in and out in the UK is, it can kind of be quite confusing.
Yeah.
But learning about these parties myself and kind of educating myself from the ground up to then be making a book, I'm trying to make it as accessible as possible to the people in the community, to people not in the community, people that don't know what dance music is, to our American friends who love EDM and think this is EDM as well. It's not.
Yeah.
Trying to make it as open and as accessible as possible.
Out of all the sites that you ended up visiting, which one was which were more of the interesting sort of sites to have these parties that you went to?
Oh fuck. So
It's a difficult question. Isn't it?
some of the huge warehouses were amazing because there's just hundreds and hundreds of people that you just recognize from different places, and even like we met at one as well. We
Yeah,
bumped
I
into
remember,
it,
yeah.
And it's just like you're nervous going in, but then you see someone and you hang around with them, and then they kind of introduce you to their friends, and then they take you to a room which used to be like a HR room, and you're like, where am I? And you could just hear people playing music in a different room. So those warehouses are amazing. But then I also like there was a space which was a church, unused, completely empty, but it was just such a bizarre place to be, where there was Bibles there was a cross, and then people like actively telling everyone, don't graff in the church, we can't do this, but respecting the space, cleaning up after the space, and just hearing the loudest jungle drum and bass ever in a church.
Wow, so quite incongruous then, isn't it?
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that's another thing that's very key to this culture that I've noticed as just someone who's sort of been to a few of these parties, is that it's a misconception, because leave no trace is a massive part of the culture. So they will leave the space exactly as it was before. But sometimes when the police come in and barge in like bowling balls and knock it all down, they don't have a chance to like clean the space after. And then it goes out in the press.
Yep.
Everyone left all the rubbish, but they never would have left the rubbish had the police not come in and ruined it all.
They're catalysts for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they make people quite, they push things to the limit, where a lot of the times, especially recently, I've seen police like have access to the building, and they're like, we need to just check if the fire alarms work and the fire doors work. And they will say that, and they're like, cool. They'll speak to the promoter, they'll walk through the building, not even engaging with whatever anyone's doing. People will just be doing balloons, doing all sorts around them. Police will walk through, test the fire door, okay, that works, there's an exit, leave. And then other times where police will give a warning, saying if you don't leave, someone's coming, and then before you know it, like a wall would be just kicked down, or like a door would be kicked down, and they would switch off the lights, and people would be scared. And it kind of creates like a panic, and everyone's like scrambling to get out. Like, it's happened to me, just run.
So that makes it more dangerous than it ever would have been.
Completely.
Because of the police.
Yeah, because there's then like crushes that could happen, because like 100 kids running out of like one door, it takes one person to fall.
Yeah.
And then police, of course, they feel like they have no limits. They could just tonk someone on the head. And who's going to tell them what? Because it's your fault, and you are in that position.
How many people? Oh, everyone's detained, all right? You can't leave.
If they had more understanding and empathy as well, they could really be a lot more, they can be a lot better in communicating with people. But this is the police we're talking about, and they won't. Why
do you think that sometimes the reactions are vastly different? Do you think it comes down to resources at that time?
Resources, and I also think a lot of the times there will be communication directly with the police. From what I've heard, I don't know how right that or how true that is, but they're like, oh, if you see a police officer, don't engage. I mean, they know of what's going on, but don't antagonize them, and don't give them a reason to come back and give you any shit. But then sometimes they'll be like, no one will know what's going on, and the police officer will just turn up, and they just want to make sure everyone's okay. They're like, they know this building is being lived in and being squatted in. They just want to make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah.
And that could happen sometimes.
And that squatting law is something that comes up in the book, doesn't it, quite a bit? And how well, firstly, let's go through section 63. Explain what that is.
So it's this.
That's the title of the book.
Title of the book.
And I should say as well that it's written by 𝐆𝐞𝐿ta𝓈y. He's a fantastic journalist as well.
Amazing.
He's been writing on these topics for years, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, section 63, the title of the book, what does that mean?
So section 63 kind of ties back to the original bill which came into place, which banned public gatherings outdoors and indoors, and it kind of like led me down this rabbit hole of like finding maps and finding kind of things to look at that was from 1994, and how 30 years later it's basically the same thing happening. Everything is so like, it's such a like a mirror reflection of what's happening.
So in 1994 you had the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, right?
Yeah.
And now, what are some of the laws that you find to be quite parallel?
Well, it would be some of the recent like
protests,
especially around the Kill the Bill acts, the stuff with especially like Palestine and
Palestine action.
People are being arrested from Palestine action, and it's kind of getting more and more like scary right wing.
Yeah.
The closer we get, and especially post like 1994, where I wasn't born then, but looking back on it, it feels like it's getting quite close to like matching.
Mm-hmm. So you had the sort of reform now, but at the time they had the BNP,
of course,
didn't they, and stuff like that, which was basically just the new incarnation of the National Front.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, like it seems to be like ramping up.
And then we also have the cost of living crisis now.
Yep.
And they had a pretty economic downturn around that time as well. So similar sociological conditions then to now. Really, that's what you're saying.
Completely.
Yeah. Interesting. So obviously you had different reactions. It says in the book that you got. Did you have any sort of run-ins with the police while you were?
Yeah.
Or did you manage to avoid the RAF?
There was a few times. There was a party around early November where I went to, and it was this big like it was billed as like a multi-genre warehouse space, multi-rooms. You're like, this is crazy. And I went there, had my cameras ready, my batteries packed, some water. I was like, cool, I'm gonna have a cool night. And I get to the space, I'm like, this is so cool. There's so many stuff going. There's so many different like speaker stacks being built, and the music starts playing, and I'm like, wow, this is great. And then I heard a huge like bang, and everyone kind of leaves this one room and sees like this sea of like riot police.
Right.
And I'm like, fuck, because this is right after a Palestine protest that happened earlier that day.
Okay.
And I thought, I was quite paranoid then. I was like, I'm quite scared. I was like, I have to run. Like, I can't. They're not letting anyone through, and they're getting closer to us. They're pulling people out of these crowds. I don't know what they're doing behind them. They could be letting them go. So I kind of.
So as a photographer in that moment, where does your mind go? Does your mind go to shoot it or self-preservation?
Well, I was like, I'm not press, so I don't have a press card, and I don't want to be pressed, because if they see me show a card and get let through, that's
credibility's gone then.
Credibility's gone, and they're like, he's a rat. And like, I'm like with these guys, and a few of them.
It'd be better to get beaten up with them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
like, proper like Leo and The Departed.
Yeah.
Where like I felt these people we're all here to support each other. We're all here together, and a few of these guys are like, oh, we can go around the police, and I'm like, cool. So a few of us, I follow these kids, and they find a fence, they jump down, and they kind of bolt it, and I'm like, cool, I'm gonna do the same. Find a fence, jump down, and I just land in this puddle, and I'm like. And it's like knee deep, and I'm soaking wet, and I run and I see a bus and I just tap on, and Like, I don't even know where
Just
the
didn't know where it was going.
I just needed to get out, and I was like, fuck. And then people in the Telegram groups are like, oh, they just left.
The police just
The
left.
police just let us walk through. I was like,
And you're coming out of the puddle.
yeah, like knee deep in mud. Camera was okay because I'm also worried. Like they see my camera, they will seize it for evidence.
Right.
Because I'm like,
And that's a lot of
evidence.
money
I'm like,
worth. Yeah.
not even that. It was just people's like the photos
Oh.
I've taken and the people I've photographed. Like they could then be in trouble.
Oh shit! Right.
So I'm
Yeah.
I didn't want to risk that at all. So, and of course, my camera being nicked by the police.
Yeah. I didn't even think of the data protection issue there as well.
Because even now, they're like, if you get stopped by police, they can just rip all the data from your phone.
Yeah. Again, another example of the diminishing civil liberties in this country. But how does it make you feel as a documentary photographer when you're running away 6 o'clock in the morning, falling in a puddle? You must feel alive.
Yeah, there was times where I'm like, I was seeing police officers, I'm like, yeah, I can get closer to you. But then there was like, the people there, the promoters, the ravers, they're like, yo, Yush, don't do this, man. We're not doing this. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it kind of made me realize it's not, at the time then, it's not a like one person thing to do. It's like, if I still think of myself as part of their community, and I hope they do as well. But I need to act like them. I'm not here to get these glorified images of police fighting ravers. I'm here to get the ravers fighting the police and winning and dancing all night. Not in a physical way.
No, in a sense of having the freedom of expression, not in a sense of
beefing up.
Yeah.
But there was times I did see that, and I'm like, I'm not going to photograph this because it's kind of feeding into that male online narrative. But there was times I saw quite touching moments, and some of the pictures show that, where it's a lot of empathy, it's a lot of emotion, and it kind of takes the squat idea of being a dirty, smelly place to being quite of a normal space that could happen in any club or any nightclub.
Yeah. And you touched on the camaraderie, which comes up in the book as well, in Jack's writing. That sense of we're all in it together, that's quite prevalent on that at them parties, and perhaps not so as much in just a normal nightclub.
Well, like there was a lot of times where people would see me and they're like, "Oh, I'm taking pictures too." I'm like, "Great," and they're like, "Oh, can I borrow this flash?" I'm like, "Sure," and they'll give it back to me, and then people will be like, "Oh, do you want some water? I've got some water here. I've got some cakes, and I've got some food if you want some," and be quite open to help and share without wanting anything in return. And if you bump into somebody, they're like, "Oh, it's all right. You knocked my drink, but it's fine." There's a lot of sense of like warmth in these spaces. You're in it together. You're in the inner circle. You're part of us. We're all one. Whereas like you bump into somebody in a club and you're getting into trouble almost.
Could do.
And it feels a lot safer to make friends in these spaces. There's a lot of like mutual understanding. You're part of that understanding. But in a place like Warehouse Project, it's like, it's quite hard to find these common grounds that isn't like a massive rave and getting as many pills in you as possible within that time. There's a lot more understanding.
Do you think the psychology is different though when you're going to somewhere where you might be contributing a small amount of money as like £1 for the sound, or something that literally helps the people who make their life this rig? It literally helps them survive, but it's a small amount of money compared to going to a nightclub paying £30 to get in, then £8, £9 for a drink and stuff. Do you think that changes the psychology a bit when people are spending so much money to be in a club, as opposed to they're all just there existing in a warehouse that someone's acquired?
I think in a club, people their expectations are so high, and they expect to be treated that way. They expect to be treated almost like they're like a customer at the Ritz.
Yeah.
But there's no expectation that the DJ is going to play music that you like. I mean, it's all in the air, especially in these big clubs. But in these spaces, in these squats, there's like a mutual understanding. It's like you come in, these artists are going to play, and you're going to respect the sound, and we're going to respect you. You're not going to climb on a rig. You're not going to piss in a corner. You're not going to throw glass anywhere, and we're going to respect you, and we're going to respect your space, and make music and play music that you may like, you may not like, but you're going to have a good night. And there's an expectation there that you will respect everyone, unless they're a prick.
Yeah. But it's also like there is none of this sort of putting the DJ on a pedestal, a very high up, sort of like almost like a god. Sort of, you know, or almost like a sort of church with the priest or something like that. There's none of that on this scene at all, where the DJs are more like this is just being I can't really see them very well.
Yeah.
And that's a very different atmosphere to some of the commercial clubs where people are going to see this sort of hero worship of this particular DJ. It's two very different things, isn't it?
Well, I think the way, like we said earlier, the boiler room-esque world we live in, the DJ's front and center. But you think who makes the music, who the music's for, and who kind of makes the crowds and the fan base. No one's really focused on that at all. And I think this is a really good way to look at how DJs are being so idolized. But then in these spaces, they're treated very normally. They're not being like fanboyed, fangirled. They'll come off, smoke a cig, and just, I'm going home now.
Yeah.
Like, cool.
Yeah, no. Do you think it's art? Like when you look at that, just as an example, do you think it's art putting the party on is art?
Completely.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much admin putting a party on, and then adding to the fact that there's no like entry doors. Like as a club, there'll be like places you can just load up. There's no loading doors. But getting in and not making it obvious what you're doing, almost doing it so incognito that the process is over like 3 or 4 days, and then sweeping the place, making sure like there's safe. There's not like random drops in the ground. There's not going to be like someone that's going to be covered in asbestos. There's people go quite deep into caring for their club and for that club at the time, which they make into a club, for that space. They go deep and they care.
Do you think people, the everyday people that turn up for the party, have an appreciation of the level that's gone in to keep them safe? Because obviously you might turn up, you're already a bit smashed. You're like, this is fantastic, but you don't think, oh shit, someone's been here yesterday to remove any hazards. Yeah. You don't really think that. I've not really thought that until you just mentioned it.
I think, it takes a while to even.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a while for people to even understand that. But the fact that people don't think about it, I think, is a testament to the party itself. I mean, it would be crazy to be in a party and then wonder, I wonder how they got rid of these nails on the ground. Because it kind of takes you out of the space. The fact they do it so seamlessly. Yeah. Like you're in a building that used to have desk chairs, and that's all clear, and you don't even think about it. You don't even think logically where they put it, but it's gone, and it's not dumped somewhere. It's just out the way, and it's testament to the promoters that put on the events, because they do it so seamlessly. And it's like, it was stuff that I wasn't even like looking at, but I was like, wow, this feels like a club, like a proper club. Yeah. How do they do it? And it just works. So it's almost like second nature to them.
You embedded yourself deep in this culture for 2.5 years. What surprised you about this culture?
I mean, I think there's so much like negative press on the people in the scene, that it's quite easy to listen to that and then succumb to what people are like looking at, and like just a bunch of people doing loads of drugs and being in places that they shouldn't be. But the more I spoke to people, the more I kind of really understand that why they didn't feel welcome in like a club, and why they didn't feel welcome in places like Printworks or Fabric. It's completely understandable, and it's not because they're dangerous people, not at all. It's because that they felt the people in those spaces were already judging them before they were inside in the queue. They didn't have the right shoes on. They weren't dressed in a certain way, and they were already prejudged. And it's a lot more empathy I grew from it, just seeing normal people sometimes very normal jobs in these spaces that are meant for everybody, no judgment.
Yeah, that's really good. You touched on before that like everyone has this nostalgia on steroids for the 90s. And even when you get to the point where you, like you said, we weren't old enough to ever go to these parties, but we feel nostalgic for a time we didn't have. Why is it? Because obviously, like, you know, interesting things happened in the 60s. You had the hippies, 70s, you had disco, you know, all these other interesting things happened in other decades. But for some reason, that decade, people are absolutely, utterly obsessed with it. Why do you think that is?
I think it's for like people that are like dance music heads.
Yeah.
What a weird thing to say. But like people that love like raving, like clubbing.
Yeah.
A lot of the music now is always referencing then. And it's something about the way people made music then, which is still influencing people now. Like even the early 2000s with grime, those instrumentals are still being kind of based on now with modern grime music. And it's that throwback of like, we respect where we came from, but this is what we're doing now. And it's kind of paying homage to like everything that they're doing, standing on the shoulders of giants, essentially.
I've heard people say things like that. I've heard people say it's because the new music came alongside a new drug, which was a fantastic drug. So I've heard. No, nothing to do with it. No, but and then someone else once said that it was the last sort of gasps before the internet took over culture.
Interesting.
So that's another interesting. Not really sure. Photographers, I always think, are the best people to speak to about culture and different moments in culture, because they are like the eyes of culture. They are the flies on the wall. Why do you think it's important to document a subculture like this, but do it in such a respectful way like you've done?
I mean, there's a lot of moments which I've experienced recently which I wished someone was there taking photos. I'm quite a heavy photographer in kind of the new South Asian underground, where there's a bunch of South Asian musicians and DJs that are performing to predominantly South Asian crowds and playing music that I grew up with, like Bhangra and garage, and Bhangra and like Punjabi music, to music I found myself with like garage and dubstep, and playing the two like seamlessly. And looking back on where the early iterations of the South Asian underground, there was no photographers there. There were people taking photos, but on like a commission from The Guardian, but there were never someone from that community. And I feel being part of this community, the South Asian underground, is that this is my legacy to someone else to look at, even if it's in 10 months and 5 years, someone else can then reference this, saying this was this point of time, because it's getting less and less, it's getting harder and harder to find those for like certain points of time, especially the transition from analog to digital. A lot of stuff was lost, a lot of music was lost. A lot of like images are yet to be digitized, which kind of are still being digitized, but over years they diminish. And it's almost like putting a stamp on history, even if no one will look back on it until a decade. It's kind of immortalizing everyone in the scene and legitimizing them as well.
And why do you think it's important, or just works so much better when it is someone in that community that's documenting, as opposed to, like you said, a tourist from The Guardian coming in?
Trust. It made me closer to people, like physically as well as emotionally, and that made me closer to the photos I took. And I feel part of more of the photos, even like speaking to people, like the photo of the couple that's behind us.
This one?
Yeah, I saw them just hugging, and I spoke to them. I was like, this would be a great photo. And they were like, no, man. I was like, trust me. And they were like, you know me, we did these photos before. And they were like, yeah, you're right. And I said, just look at each other and then just look at me. And I took the photo and I showed them, and they're like, send me that now. I was like, great.
Should we just go around and just point a few out? Yeah,
let's do it.
So let's just pick a couple out here. This one, what is the context of this?
So this is the one where like I was standing on like the balcony of what used to be like a factory.
Yeah.
This is before the music was actually turned on. People were just ready for I think this was actually just as it came on, but there was issues with the tech. And as soon as they turned on, people were like alive. It kind of just set shock waves. I could feel the bass shake the floor from the barrier I was at.
When I look at this, I always think at some of the strategies that the people that put these parties on have to do, because you have to get as many people there as quick as possible.
Yep.
Once there's a certain amount of people there, you're pretty much safe in terms of it getting shut down. So there's this kind of rush, isn't there?
Yep, completely.
How does that work?
I think it's like it's like a numbers game. The more people they have inside, the less likely they can take them outside again with the police. So I think it kind of creates this like barrier. It is like this collective of people that they have inside that are just protecting them, protecting each other.
Yeah. And this sort of thing, you can see here that this would have been an old industrial unit, right?
Completely, yeah.
And then, but you can even see that they've even got some of the sort of decorations above the rig and stuff like that. So there's even little embellishments like it would be in a nightclub.
Yeah, for sure.
So going on to this one here,
that was
this ominous.
That was the one I fell into the party. That's how close I got before I had to go. Before I fell in.
There's no trouble at the party.
No, and these guys came through.
And they just came in, and you can see how intimidating that is. It's like the Imperial stormtroopers.
I mean, even personally, I've only seen these police officers with riot shields at like hooligan games. I've never seen them in the space like this, and it kind of really made everything very real. Saying these people, the police officers, are just there to antagonize and not engage with people.
That's interesting. Yeah. Let's go with this one.
Yep.
This is a bit of a moment, isn't it? Can you explain this moment?
So this was the first proper party I went to, and it's when I met the sound system guys. They kind of dropped this pin on what 3 words, and I got to the station and I got the pin. I'm like, oh cool, I have what 3 words. I like maps, and I put it in, and a bunch of kids were there, and they just didn't know where to go. And I was like, cool, I'm heading. I know where to go. I kind of made my way down this canal path and then under this motorway, and then I turned around, and all of these kids are following me, and they're like, you know where the rave is? And I was like, oh, that's great. And I felt like the Pied Piper of the rave just then, because there was like a queue of kids.
Were you nervous though? Because this was during the beginning of this journey, was it? So at the end of the day, you've got a lot of faith in this what 3 words, haven't you? It's turning up in the middle of nowhere.
I always kind of had this mantra that I kept saying. I'm like, and it's the Peep Show quote of people. I was at Mark Corrigan saying, "I'm Louis Theroux." I kind of had that internal monologue in my head. And I just kept saying it to myself every time I got scared. I was like, I'm Louis Theroux.
So is that what you do sometimes when you're in a bit of a sketchy situation? You think back to the Peep Show quote.
Completely.
Really?
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that for?
Oh God, too long.
That's a strategy. I might try doing that. Yeah.
It stops me being nervous.
Yeah.
It kind of like if I feel like I'm scared, I could just dash.
Yeah.
But then at the time, it was like these kids were just laughing, and they were like,
good vibes.
You know where to go, and I'm like, cool.
There you go. And another thing that I always like asking photographers, not necessarily relating to this project, but is there ever a moment, like what's the photo that you never took that you wish you did?
Oh, fuck.
Maybe you didn't have your camera on you that day, or?
It was when I went knee deep in a puddle, but there was someone, I saw a video of it, in fact, which was
Wait,
crazy.
this is a separate puddle incident to the...
This was the same puddle
incident. The same puddle,
and
the notorious puddle.
When I saw the people just leaving the party, it was pissing down with rain. It was like such heavy rain that day. And I saw a video of a girl like wiping the visor of a police officer with the rain. And it was a raver doing that to a police officer, and I was like, and I kind of put my head in my hands with my wet knees. I'm like, fuck, and I was like, it was such a great video, and I was like, if I was there, and I was like, that kind of sums up the scene. But I don't have to be there to enjoy it, but also that never happened. No one's ever going to see that. I'm not going to share it out. It's not my job to do, but no one's going to know that very intimate moment with a young raver and a police officer happened, because it's gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, and there was many moments like that which I missed, and many moments that a lot of people will miss.
Yeah.
So that was it.
There you go. So the exhibition, guys, is on until the 9th of September at the Farsight Collective in Central. So get yourself down. Otherwise, it's a great book. You can get it in the description if you just click down there, section 63. Thank you very much, Yushy.
Thank you.